What's cracking, everybody, and welcome to the Tasty Tones podcast. My name is Rennie Coakley, and this is the podcast where we discover all tones, all tasties, and all the tasties that make the best tones. I'm here with my special guest, Callum Kennedy, and introduce yourself, mate.
Hey, I'm Callum. I'm a composer and a musician from Queensland, Brisbane, Australia. I currently work as the coordinator of education with the Queensland Symphony Orchestra, and I've had a very, reasonable stint as a high school music teacher and doing little bits of portfolio composition across the place for things like concert music, films, video games. Yeah,
Nice, man. Well, as you know, I found you through Facebook, and I'm a student at SAE doing audio engineering, and I am a musician, and I do profess to compose quite a bit of music, and I do really enjoy doing it. But I've never sort of explored that, high intensity and just like a lot. Composing for a lot of people and also teaching people in like a large group. I've done my fair share of, small band recordings and compositions, but I've never sort of done anything to that scale. So could you just tell me a bit about it? Just like, what do you do?
Yeah, sure thing. So every project is different. So sometimes, like if you're writing for screen or for video games, a lot of the time you are writing with a brief in mind, and that brief might be an ensemble, but a lot of the time it's just a mood or something, and a lot of the time you're finding your way around that and like what instrumentation to use. But sometimes if you're writing concert music, so the term that we use for anything within sort of a classical idiom, you would actually be given a brief which is an instrumentation. And so, for example, if you're writing a string quintet, they'll say, you've got to write for 2 violins, viola, cello, double bass. Or wind quintet, they'll go, all right, you got to write for flute, oboe, clarinet, French horn, bassoon. And so when you're writing in these kinds of paradigms, you need to understand the role of each instrument in each respective, say, like register of the instrument, like what sort of sound,
on the frequency spectrum and that sort of thing. So where they sit.
Not just that, but in terms of their actual timbre. Like, so for example, understanding the like a lot of people in their first wind quintet might write their bassoon part all the way at the bottom, honking down at the bottom, holding the bass together essentially, because that's sort of like one of the perceived roles of the instrument is that, this thing is a bass instrument, and that it's going to be the foundation of your harmony. However, there's some absolute beauty that can come from the upper register of a bassoon. The things that immediately stick out to me being things like The Rite of Spring by Igor Stravinsky, the Elixir of Love from Donizetti, what is it? Ravel's Bolero as well. Some gorgeous bassoon lines up high, and it's just like, as a composer for this medium, you kind of have to have an intimate knowledge of the orchestration and the sound related to each of these instruments in varying registers and different articulate characters. So, for example, the sound of what is the sound of, say, a string playing col legno going to be? And understanding, so col legno meaning with the actual wood of the bow, not the hair. So what is the sound of that going to produce? What is a sul tasto versus a sul ponticello going to, so playing over the bridge or playing over the fingerboard, how is that going to affect the sound? Understanding those things. So frequency spectrum is definitely an element of it, but I think it's one of the smaller elements. I think a lot of it is understanding the principles of sound and of timbre and of texture, and I've always professed that the notes are the least important part of
Right.
writing this type of music, because a lot of it is how you communicate a very humanistic idea. Like, instruments don't play music, humans do.
Yeah.
And so the way that you communicate musical ideas to the musicians, who then communicate those musical ideas to an audience. So already there's the signal chain there of people. And it's about going, rather than, no one in the audience is going to go, oh yeah, oh maybe a few people will go, oh, that was a very clever C7 sharp 9 chord that he used there, resolving it. Like, a few people might say that, but most average punters, even at an orchestra, concert, aren't really going to be thinking that. They're going to go, oh, that was a beautiful core anglais line or something. And a lot of the time it'll be about the actual quality of the sound. And so that's a big part of what I guess we do as concert music composers.
Right.
Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah. So, like, major part of your actual composition relies on the knowledge of how each instrument reacts to different techniques of playing and that sort of thing. So, in a way, that's actually quite like sound design for, like, Foley or something of that, which I've been doing recently.
Exactly. So it's exactly the same as if you load up Serum, in your digital audio workstation, and you start mucking around with the, oscillators, like, and how you create different sounds, and, what is the sound of a sawtooth wave down low versus up high? What's it actually doing to the timbre there? So things like that, or even going, changing the detune of it. What is that doing to it at each register? It's exactly the same. It's just understanding the principles of sound.
Yeah.
And I guess the other really big thing about writing for this medium is because we are writing for human beings. Human beings are not like machines. A lot of people will write with Sibelius in front of them, or Finale, Dorico, what have you. And it will play it back for you the same way each time. But a human, like a human will actually falter. And what I mean by that is, you can't give a trombonist 30-something bars at lento of straight long tones. They're going to run out of breath. You can't give them crazy fast stuff for 400 bars either, because they're going to get chopped. They're literally, their muscles are going to give out. So understanding the idiomatic side of how an instrument is played, and how to write for the performer of that instrument so that they have the most efficient way of effectively communicating your ideas. I think that's just as important.
So I've always believed, because I'm very interested in finding out, what the creative experience is to its, basest form. And, part of that is my idea of a creation is first and foremost a reflection of the creator, and that is the sort of it's the sort of thing that holds all of creative media together. All us creators, we all create things that best represent us and what we are feeling or experiencing or anything like that at a certain moment in time. So I think where I may struggle with grasping composing concert music is that you do first and foremost have to reflect your inner self and what you feel, or at least something like that, reflecting human emotion particularly. But is that much more difficult because you are also considering that other people will be performing this piece, and they will obviously have a, perspective or something that relates to your idea, but not entirely reflects it. So is there any compromise that you have to give?
Well, First off, I'd want to say that I think there's a little bit of a misconception there. I don't think all music needs to be reflective of what the individual is feeling at a particular point of time. You know, there's people can write things like studies or etudes, or, you know, they can write things for an artistic purpose that is not necessarily just, oh, this is how I feel, but it could be someone going, oh, this is a technique that I want to try out. You know, I want to experiment with this kind of sound, like this kind of color or timbre. But I think that when you are writing...
Sorry, I think I perhaps worded that wrong. I think I literally just meant, you know, we write what we experience and feel, and also desire, want, and, you know, what we want to, you know, do, try out, feel. Just anything in our consciousness that we feel could relate to a piece of music that we want to write, then I think that's what we do. So yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But as for how that's communicated to performers, I think it's kind of funny. I feel like there's a 360 that happens. I think when you do your composition as a part of, you know, high school music, and they tell you, oh, you need to submit a composition statement or something, and it's, you know, what have you done? What have you tried to achieve? And I think it's, you know, can sometimes be quite daggy, and you can look at it and you can go, but like, why? Like it seems like you're doing a musicology assignment on your own piece or something. And I think like it's just because you haven't learned to understand its role yet, which is giving a performer a little bit of a lens into your mindscape while you were writing the piece, or for what you were attempting to achieve with the piece. So, for example, if I put a piece of music with a nonsensical title or a title in another language or whatever in front of a musician, already I've created and there's nothing else there. Already I've created a barrier of entry for them to understand what the piece is about. Like they go in, all they know is what notes and articulations and other directions I've put on the page, and they see this title in another language. Now, they might, and I stress might, because a lot of the time it depends on who you're working with. But if you're working with a lot of professional musicians who are, you know, performing every day, and so they're performing new repertoire every week or so, they are not going to look at your piece before the first rehearsal. They're going to sight read it on the first rehearsal, and which is also why I stress you have to know the idiomatic nature of these instruments. You know, if you bring them something and they go, oh, that's unplayable, in its first rehearsal, it's like, okay,
you need to know how sort of instruments work and, you know, are able to play that. Like an example in what I sort of write in metal, there's been a lot of examples from peers and other people in metal who write drums in Guitar Pro or Ableton or whatever, and then the drummer sits there and goes, wait, what? I don't have four hands, you know?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's exactly the same. Like, and like understanding like hand distance, for example. Like if you're going to be doing, say, like a sweep arpeggio, understanding, I guess, what shapes are easy to do and what shapes are not easy to do, depending on how it's written as well, at what tempo. Like literally coming down to even if they're stipulating what plectrum you're using, things like that, which I have seen in art music for electric guitar. So I guess the next thing that I was going to say, where was I? Was, so they're not necessarily going to look at your music before the first rehearsal. So they're not going to, like, if you're lucky, they will Google the title. They'll go, oh, okay, cool. What does this mean in English?
Right. Yeah.
If they, you know, and if you're lucky, that will give them some kind of reflection of what the piece is about. But again, that's very one-dimensional. That's just a title. Yeah. A title might not.
It's basic insight. It
could literally be, you could have flicked through a dictionary and gone, yeah, that looks cool.
Yeah.
Like I've done that. You know,
So have
you
I,
flick through a
yeah.
dictionary, you go, "That's a cool word. I'm going to use that." And there's nothing wrong with that approach either. I mean, it's think about how, for example, you know, all of the classical greats, and you know the 1800s and 1700s, it was string quartet number one, string quartet number three, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't
The,
exactly a reflection
yes,
of emotion, you know?
exactly. So the title doesn't get uh, them into a headspace of what the piece is about.
Yeah.
So the next thing you can do is you can actually prepare a couple of concert notes. So this is what I'm saying is, you know, in school, you write all these, you know, compositional intention notes or something, and then you go away and you go, oh, that's rubbish. That's, you know, no one's reading these. Well, actually, the performer is reading them because for them to
Yeah.
communicate the music effectively, they want to feel like they're a part of a narrative. They want to feel like their voice is being heard telling a story. It's like, for example, how someone might pass on a bedtime story to their children, and you know they'll say it, you know, like 200 times or whatever over that children's life growing up or whatever, and then the child goes, oh, okay, how am I going to tell this to my kids? And they're piecing it together. They're using their voice to tell this story. Musicians want to feel like they're a part of that narrative as well, like they're given the voice to communicate it. But they also want to feel like the upside to it is music, in particular classical music, is a medium where we actually get to cheat, and that we get. You never see an actor on stage with their script in their hand.
No.
We get sheet music in front of us. We get told what to do. It's fantastic. We're very lucky, and so I guess you know, they don't need to remember the words, but they get to remember what the actual I guess intention of the piece is. So you can give them just a page of what is this about? What are you trying to achieve? And I think that is how you communicate that to your performers, and how your performers then push that further and communicate that to the audience.
Yeah. Right. So I think, and yeah, I sort of get that. And I guess extending onto like film music, which I understand you have also been a part of composing. I have, you know, I've dabbled in composing music for film, not necessarily concert music. It's mostly been contemporary music, and you know,
Nothing wrong
using
with that.
no, but and obviously I understand the general idea of how to identify a feeling or experience or emotion, and how to relate that to from what's in the film to what should be in the music. But I think my understanding of composing concert music for film is that there are many more dimensions of just relating an emotion from on screen to the music. So yeah.
I'm not sure if I 100% agree. I think that in terms of the difference between in terms of film music, the difference between say using an orchestra and using a rock band is just a change of color, a change of texture. Because the other thing is you can get a wide palette of sounds out of a string section, but you can also get a wide palette of sounds out of literally one guitar that a string section will never be able to replicate. You know, I can run a guitar through a ring modulator, through a tremolo, through some subtle drive, through a compressor, and run it through this huge. Exactly. So I can do all that I want with that sound anyway. It's just another way of communicating ideas, and I think that there has been such a long-lasting tradition of, I guess, classical music representing what's happening on screen. But I think a lot of that is just because that's kind of the tradition. Like a lot of the very early film scores were done by art music composers
Yeah.
for orchestras who already had established careers as composers for, concert music.
Yeah.
And that's just sort of been this medium that has prevailed throughout the years, like, a century on. So if we are looking at a lot of the more modern film scores, I think that you can still get so much emotion. One that immediately comes to my mind when I think of emotion and how it's conveyed in a film score is The Social Network by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. That is a soundtrack that shakes you to your core, and
Absolutely,
it's because of the way that they play around with synthetic and also organic elements. Like the way that they went, all right, we're going to mic the piano really close, but also really distant. And then throughout, this one piece of music, it will fade between the two. So it literally
so
feels
creating an
like
active blend. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's literally becoming more distant the further along you go, which is like this kind of like, it's this duality in the narrative of the film. But there's some incredible films out there and incredible video games as well, like with scores that don't necessarily just use an orchestra. But then the other thing is, an orchestra is such a malleable ensemble in that, if you look at the orchestra in, say, Shawshank Redemption versus the orchestra used in Disney's Incredibles, there is a very stark difference between the two of them.
Oh,
and it's not just in terms of instrumentation. A lot of it is actually just to do with writing. There's all these big brass rips. Like, it literally feels like it's ripped straight out of a big band arrangement for The Incredibles. It's got this huge, these 5/4 sections that have this kind of tumbling over itself kind of quality. It's fantastic. But I think there is another dimension to film music that needs to be addressed, which is the existence of what's called temp tracks. And are you familiar with what a temp track is?
No.
Okay, so a temp track is something that has sort of prevailed in the industry for, the decades and decades. And what it is it's a composer, a director will generally cut a scene or cut a storyboard of a scene to, in their mind, they've already got music playing. They've got an idea of what's happening. And a lot of the time, it's a reference track that they have. They go, oh, I reckon, Dvorak's Ninth Symphony, the first movement, this is what would play here. And so they give that to the composer and they go, here you go. This is what my temp track is. Write something like this.
Right.
And so the problem being that a lot of the time, that becomes incredibly restrictive for composers, because it goes, all right, write this thing that's like this and make it like this, because the director's already married the two in their mind.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to break. And it's a hard thing to go, actually, I think we should approach it this way.
Yeah.
Because, it's their baby. It's their child, essentially.
Yeah.
But the upside to that is that you have parameters. You literally can go, all right, cool. So, like if you listen to the Star Wars scores, as wonderful and as incredible of a composer as John Williams is, they are riddled with, like, I don't want to say plagiarism, but so many like references.
Motifs from other tracks and like insights from composers and etc.
Yeah, like he will literally go, okay, like what is it? One of them is straight up from Dvorak. Like he would rip that straight from Dvorak. Who would go, oh, this thing that Wagner did, or he will take ideas that are already established, and then go, right, cool. How do I shift it around a little bit, make it new? And that's not just a him thing. That's an everyone thing. And I think it's a hard once a director starts doing it, and once a composer starts playing into that, it's really hard to break out of. It's really hard to reestablish the the role that, hey, let's experiment, let's play around with this, because a lot of the time, time is money.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the easier that you can communicate a musical idea to someone whose job it is to produce something similar,
the less time they're
cheaper
going
it
to
is.
spend, and therefore cheaper. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Does that sort of answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic.
Awesome. One other thing that I wanted to talk to you about, because I've always been interested in, is music education, and actually being one of those people who is actually able to teach not only like how to play an instrument, because I don't, in music education in the tertiary level, I don't think you really do that, but like actually teaching music in its advanced form. That's something that's always intrigued me. But yeah, I've not, I've never felt so experienced to be able to do that professionally.
Yeah. So, first thing I want to say there is that teaching music, teaching performance still does happen at a tertiary level.
Yeah.
So, and on a multiplicity of levels as well. So some people will say at the Queensland Conservatorium or at the UQ School of Music, will audition on their instrument, and it's about furthering their ability playing that instrument in like a soloistic or ensemble aspect. And so they'll work with a teacher who is already generally quite established to develop that. So you can still, I guess, teach an instrument,
like
but
instrument
even
tutoring,
beyond that, second study. So a lot of people will be encouraged to learn what's called a second study instrument, which is, let's say you've gone through your whole life and you've played clarinet, and you're like, cool, I'm a clarinetist. And they'll go, hey, do you want to pick up oboe? Do you want to pick up saxophone? Do you want to pick up bassoon or something like that? And you go, oh yeah, all right, I'll give it a shot. So that's another way that at a tertiary level, performance is taught. But yeah, so getting into, I guess, actually teaching composition and teaching these kinds of things, a lot of the time, there are two ways to look at it. The first way is there are rules. There are rules to do with composition, and they're not so important anymore.
Yeah.
Honestly, they're not so important anymore. Back in the day, if you had parallel fifths in your, counterpoint, or I guess lack of counterpoint in that case, people would, get up in arms about it. It's I guess it's kind of the meme is, oh, you've written consecutive fifths, whatever. Sounds great though. Sounds awesome. Metal is literally built on the idea of parallel fifths. Like that's just the power chord. But even before then, composers like Claude Debussy, littered all throughout his music. He really approached the idea of using parallelism in harmony. So really teaching rules is almost just to give an idea of what did exist so you can pivot on it. Which is still important. I think you should still learn what happens in the past so that you can approach the future more appropriately.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
informed
just gained
practice.
insight. Yeah, informed. Exactly.
The other thing is everyone's going to write something different. And it's not always going to stay static either. So, for example, when I first went to the conservatorium to study composition, I wanted to be Beethoven. Like, I wanted to write, very 1800s kind of romantic works. And I very quickly snapped out of that when I started actually experiencing other types of music.
Yeah.
Literally listening to composers like Karlheinz Stockhausen, Maurice Ravel, people like Steve Reich, like Joe Hisaishi, composers that are just really quintessentially now, and even just embracing different kinds of colors, different kinds of harmonic ideas and melodic ideas, like writing 12-tone music? Can I write graphic music, like different ways of communicating ideas? Can I write aleatoric music, which is like music with a chance-based component,
Right.
or an indeterminate component, I should say. So there's so many different ways to approach it that you can't just use a one-size-fits-all approach when teaching composition. You kind of have to go, all right, what do you want to achieve? How do I assist you? How do I get you from A to B on your terms? And so, for example, if I had a student who just wants to write future bass, like they write EDM, they just want to write future bass. That's all they care about. I can go, all right, cool. Have you tried listening to these things outside of that? Like I can lead them to water, so to speak. I can say, have you listened to Aphex Twin? Have you listened to, old, 90s house music or whatever? I can lead them to these kinds of things. But I also have to approach it from where they are right now and go, okay, cool. So you're looking at this. Yeah. Let's look at different chord voicings that you can use or whatever, so that I can assist them in where they're wanting to be right now, while also opening doors for where they might want to be in, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I absolutely understand that. And I do enjoy exploring that sort of idea of incorporating other music and other, you could say, genres of music into one genre, because in my, not extensive experience, but decent experience of music, is that the dynamism of a genre of music is absolutely widened by how many influences of other genres it incorporates and its composers incorporate.
Well, let me give you a probing question here, and so why does the term genre exist?
Well, I was the term genre exists as just a way of, classifying music. So people who aren't in the music field or are in the music field, just people, are able to classify music into areas that they think they will enjoy or, be related to or compose within.
Right. So it's a point of keeping.
It's a point of reference.
Keeping yourself. Yeah, it's a point of reference. So you're saying, I enjoy this type of music. I would like to enjoy more of this type of music.
Yeah.
So who do you think that benefits outside of just the consumer?
Well, everyone inside the creative process there, you've obviously got the composer and producers, engineers, and like record labels, if you're going through that way or anything like that, because then it gives them point of reference to base their job off, and how to do their job in a different way to how they would normally do it in another genre.
So, for example, let's say you go down to your local JB Hi-Fi or something, and you've got all of your music sections there. So, if you go to your alternative rock section, can you tell me what alternative rock means?
Well, to me, it means it differentiates itself from the rock of its time or, cultural zeitgeist or whatever. So it takes whatever is popular in rock at that time and subverts it. So that's what that means to me.
Okay. So then you take a couple of steps down the row and you get to the world music section. So what's world music?
I have not had a lot of experience with world music, I can tell you that much. But to me, that just that means more like just internationally recognized artists. I guess I'm not quite sure.
Isn't that interesting? So world music is generally music that utilizes musical forms and musical performance mediums of nationalities and customs outside of Western culture.
Yeah.
So how come can I go and see a Javanese gamelan CD that is right next to an Indian raga CD, and they're the exact same genre? Those two musical forms are inherently different, but the company that is selling these CDs is saying, right, you are going to like both of these things because they're both not Western music. So isn't that quite interesting?
It is. And also doesn't make a lot of sense coming from a sort of exterior perspective like that. Yeah. Exactly.
So my argument is that not music genre is it's in fact probably more important for the people selling you music, so that you know what you're getting. You're not reluctant to buy something because you know that it has the same term as something that you already listen to. If someone says to you, do you listen to much jazz?
A little bit here and there, not a whole lot, but I really quite enjoy smooth jazz and sort of fusion as well.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So if I said, like Chick Corea, you'd be like, oh yeah, damn. Yeah, I love Chick Corea. But if you say, to your buddy who only listens to black metal, you say, oh, you want to listen to this Chick Corea album, it's, crazy fusion jazz type stuff. Already they're turned off by the term fusion jazz. They haven't even listened to the music yet. They're going, this is not my thing. It's, you sort of get what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And I myself have been guilty of that in the past. Of course, being a teenager, you do that. But now now I tend to explore music as a whole rather than, just one particular genre. Because obviously I have music that I like and have liked for all my life, rock, metal, etc. But I find myself enjoying a lot of different music now, from anywhere from pop, 90s ballads and to like bloody fusion jazz or concert music.
Yeah, so another thing could be like, for example, groups like Postmodern Jukebox who play arrangements of modern songs in like a 1920s kind of like vaudeville style. Is that a different genre? And if so, then it's not because of necessarily the compositional stereotypes. A lot of it comes down to the performative stereotypes.
And
it's
instrumentation and
So it's timbre. So it's they're just using different instruments, and then they're using different articulations that are relevant to the style. Which, for example, something that I think about a lot is the crossover between two styles that are that I remember in the sort of heyday of dubstep when it first emerged onto the scene. People who were rock and heavy metal lovers were quite resistant to it because it was, that's all made with computers.
Yeah.
Forgetting the fact that Skrillex, so Sonny, he is a guitar player. Yeah. He comes from a hardcore background.
Absolutely.
So he used the compositional stereotypes. Like it was very rhythmic music, very visceral music. The textures and the timbres used were very similar to metal, but because it had a different because it had a different term associated with it, people were quite resistant to that. And I think that in many ways, putting a label on your music and putting a genre on your music can sometimes hold people back from actually experiencing it.
And I think it can also take away from actually the composition of the music in the creative process. So you go, I'm going to write a song in this genre. It can take away some really good ideas because it's not in that genre. So, yeah.
Well, like, what is it? One of my favorite genres is prog rock.
Yeah.
But what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does prog mean? Like,
it's rock, but it's progressive. Huh? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, it's progressive. Cool. But so 70s prog rock. If we're now looking at, if we're looking at modern prog rock, so groups like Animals as Leaders, Caligula's Horse, a group
Periphery, all that sort of stuff.
Plenty, all that sort of stuff. If we're looking at those groups, can we even call the 70s stuff prog anymore? Because we're past it. So why do we call? Why does everyone go? Oh yeah, King Crimson. Like yes, like it's
because prog rock, you can't really compare Animals as Leaders to, say, like Genesis. Like they're not the same in any way, shape, or form.
However, I can guarantee you that that's how they'll sell those two bands.
Yeah.
Right? Under the same banner, and they'll go, oh, if you like Genesis, you might like Animals as Leaders. Like, I'm just thinking of someone who goes from listening to Genesis's first album to immediately, like, Googling CAFO and just hearing that, just opening Sweet Pick and just going, this is not for me.
Yeah. Huh.
But yeah, I guess we're getting quite far away from concert music here. But
we are quite, but it's good.
I think it's a similar idea, though, that even that term, concert music, creates a very elite vibe to it. And it puts a lot of people off. So if you're one of the listeners who normally doesn't go listen to, classical music, I really urge you, go and dip your toes in the water. Like it costs you nothing to look up a few bits here and there on YouTube. It costs you nothing.
Precisely. And I completely 100% back that, because I have been doing exploring of my own, and exploring things that I originally thought in my teenage years, I won't like that, and really realistically now I'm just like, yes, that is a tune.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I could not stand EDM. It's been on my playlist all of this week. Porter Robinson, like, it's just just like the most like kawaii EDM. Like, it's just give yourself an opportunity to participate in a different musical form. And it'll give you a new frame of reference.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the same with me. As of my childhood, I was like, country music and that sort of thing has been on my no list per se. And my number one song at the moment is the Dukes of Hazzard theme by Waylon Jennings, which is essentially country.
Yeah, and it's an absolute bop. So
that's a great song. Yeah. Yeah, no, I do really enjoy that sort of experience of change when you're not only appreciating music as a whole, but also being able to understand the perspectives that composers go through in all different types of music. And
no, definitely. I think one of the other things that's really important is that orchestra is not a genre.
Yeah.
Or, like because you can't put say for example like Mozart's clarinet concerto right next to Igor Stravinsky's Rite of Spring and go, they're the same. They're entirely different. So, and especially nowadays, so many classical, and I use you can't see because it's audio, but like using inverted commas here, classical composers are just as inspired by popular music. Like what is it? I like a really, really great composer from Queensland, Robert Davidson, senior lecturer of composition at UQ.
Right.
We had a conversation once, and he asked me, he goes, oh, what are you listening to at the moment? And I was like, oh, I'm listening to some Bela Bartok, and I'm listening to some Stockhausen. Like, I was trying to like kind of like
Yeah,
build
sort of
myself up.
build
Be
yourself
like,
up.
I listen to these refined music tastes. And he goes, oh, I've been digging the new Arctic Monkeys. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, here's like one of the best exports of classical music in
Yeah.
Queensland. And he's like, yeah, I dig the like shoegaze. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I got it. Like so don't be afraid to put it all into a great big melting pot of what you write. Just because there's bassoons and stuff there doesn't mean you can't write like something that shreds.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, in some of the stuff that I've been writing recently, I've been at the moment I'm sort of half writing a rock EP because before that I've been writing lots of ambient and sort of instrumental soft guitar music. But I'm writing this rock EP, and I'm taking inspiration from a lot of synths and that sort of stuff from like NSYNC and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it just creates this kind of sound, and it's just it does.
Can I say,
Yeah.
pop composers are some of the smartest composers alive.
yeah.
Because okay, and a classical music composer knows, okay, you paid for this ticket. I got commissioned for this piece, but you paid for this ticket, and you're gonna sit in that chair for the next 20 minutes listening to my piece. You're going to do that because you paid for the ticket.
Yeah.
Someone who writes pop music goes, all right, I got 3 minutes.
Yeah, I got 3 minutes
I got
to
3
express
minutes.
all that. Yeah.
And it's not even that. Sometimes they're like, okay, I got 14 seconds before you flip to a different channel.
Yeah.
So it's all about them going, how can I keep you hook, line, and sinker?
Yeah.
And the music, obviously they have to feel inspired too, they're still enjoying the music they create every day. Otherwise, why turn up to work? But they're also going, how do I keep people engaged? How do I keep people who aren't buying a ticket to listen to me in the car on the way to work in the morning? Like, keep them engaged.
Yeah. And that is exactly why 98% of pop music has some of the best melodic content and hooks and that sort of thing, is because they have that small amount of time to engage you.
Definitely. And I think pop music is not afraid to take a few risks with what I might do. Like, I think one of the biggest risks that I saw in pop music in recent times was actually the actually coming back to him, Skrillex with Justin Bieber, the Where Are You Now?
Yeah.
And how the main hook of that song, it's like it's instrumental. That's an EDM club banger with a couple of verses. Like, it's so, and then like you look at the music that sort of came out after that, and I think of like Porter Robinson's Shelter, stuff that took that same idea of, okay, the chorus isn't, there's no vocal, or at least there's no lead vocal with lyrics. It's just it's a banger with verses.
Yeah,
like it's and I find that so fascinating that the paradigm of popular music can shift so quickly.
Oh yeah, like overnight, and I think that's testimony to why some pop composers are absolutely some of the smartest people, is that they are able to actually keep up with that, and not only keep up with it, but actually set new ways of which they're going with pop music.
And stay relevant. Like,
absolutely.
That'd be so hard. Oh my God.
Yeah. No, like people who compose concert music and rock and metal and that sort of thing, nuanced genres now. Metal, as much as we like to think it's still alive and going, is not as relevant as it was 30 years ago to the mainstream. It still has a subculture, a cult following, and it's very strong. But, it's in the mainstream, realistically, it's not entirely relevant.
Let me ask you a question. If you saw a thrash metal band, like in the vein of like the big four, like so Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, Slayer, if you saw a thrash metal band come out today and they were playing at your local pub or whatever, and they sounded exactly the same. Why? What's enticing you to go see them? There's
yeah.
kind of nothing there to make you go, oh, okay, that they've got something interesting to say. Because if you're not, if I wanted to hear that, I got 20 something CDs sitting right to the left of me, with all that stuff there. I can just go, yeah, I'm going to put on, Master of Puppets. I don't need to trek out to the valley
exactly
to go listen to a band that sounds like something that I've got all of this already A-list material of.
Yeah.
So I guess ask how, like, what are you doing now that isn't being done? What are you saying that hasn't been said?
Yeah.
And if you are doing something that has been done before, how are you saying it differently?
Yeah, and
it comes back to what you
how
said.
are you subverting it? Yeah.
Yeah, it comes back to what you said at the start, where you were like, it's all about putting your mark on it, like how you put yourself into your music.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like, yeah, I guess concepts that have been overdone previously, as that big four thrash metal sort of type area of Anthrax, Metallica, Slayer, and Megadeth. Their ideas and sort of mark have already been recreated thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of times with different songs across the world.
In fact, isn't everyone like paying out Greta Van Fleet for sounding like Led Zeppelin?
Yeah.
Like, is it? Yeah. So
that's a big thing.
Consumers are not dumb. We're not dumb. Like we can see when something's just a rehash, and why would we listen to bootleg Led Zeppelin when I can just listen to
Led Zeppelin? Yeah, I mean, Greta Van Fleet have some good songs that don't sound entirely like Led Zeppelin, but it's just a lot of their sort of idea seems to be, well, Led Zeppelin made a crap load of money in the 70s and 80s. Let's just do that. Let's make more money as well. So yeah.
Like, look, if your goal is to make money, there are way better ways to do it than to pretend that you're a band from the 70s. Trust me.
Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, no, I don't know what I'm saying, but I quite like that idea of what you said, putting all your tastes and, quote unquote, genre specific motifs in a melting pot and just putting them all together and see what comes out of it, and, not classifying ideas as a part of a particular genre. I quite like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's nothing saying that if you're writing a piece for orchestra, there's nothing saying that you can't write, a section that is like, oh, I love djent music. Let's put like a djent breakdown in there. Or I love, like Aphex Twin and his use of, like timbre. Like, can I approximate sounds like that? There's nothing saying that you can't go, all right, cool, I'm writing for orchestra, but also there's going to be an accordion player there.
Yeah.
Like,
I found some very interesting examples of that, actually, in years past and also this year. One of them being Mr. Bungle as an artist that is...
I love Mr. Bungle.
Absolutely. And also a local band, well, local to me when I was in high school, but 12 Foot Ninja is a band from Byron.
Yep.
And they did a lot of that sort of, well, a couple of examples of that sort of intermingling between quote-unquote genre-specific ideas. And I think it's just sort of a really cool way to explore the music world.
Agreed. Like, 12 Foot Ninja are incredible.
Oh, yeah.
The type of music that they write is so inspired, but so well produced and so well performed.
Yeah.
But I think that even going on further from that, a band that I absolutely adore from Brisbane that are kind of doing something similar, where like it is just a great big melting pot of everything is a band called Les Suits.
Right.
And I've never seen anything quite as amazing as a vacuum cleaner solo in the
Yeah,
middle of a
no,
song.
that's
And
definitely different.
and it's like that's not a strange artifact in their music. Like
Yeah,
their stuff will just it's almost like the aim of the exercise is to catch you off guard, and I love that.
yeah,
There's nothing better than not knowing where something is going. If I listen to a song and I can predict what's going to happen next, I'm bored. I am
Yeah.
so bored because it's offering me nothing.
absolutely. I completely agree with that, 100%. And I've found myself recently exploring the internet as I do at 4 o'clock in the morning every morning, having a look and listen to steel tongue drums is one of my favorite instruments of now that I want to buy one and record it on rock albums because I think it would sound really really cool. And yeah,
Well, I think like okay, so using new sounds is it's not a new thing, but it's like how you use those new sounds. Like for example, when are you familiar with the group Ailstorm?
yes, I am. I love Ailstorm.
Yeah,
It's fantastic.
So I remember when they first came out, and I was like, oh, damn, this is crazy. This like pirate metal thing. This is I've never seen anything quite like it. And now there's hundreds of bands like that.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
like the idea of doing something novel, like we've got world class pirate metal bands in Brisbane.
Yeah.
So like Lagerstein.
Lagerstein, exactly.
And other like sort of folk metal bands too, groups like Valhalla. Like we're very lucky, but it's I think it's unfortunately there is an element of novelty sometimes in the here is this instrument that I'm just like pushing into this ensemble. So it's not just about putting the instrument there, it's about what you're actually doing with it.
Yeah.
So it's not always about what you're saying, it's about how you're saying it.
Yeah. Like anyone could buy an accordion and put it in a rock song and call it folk metal, but it's finding out how that instrument actually works in a timbral sort of perspective and sort of how it will react with other instruments that it's harmonizing with.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think like this is not a new thing. Like we've been experimenting with different instruments for hundreds of years.
Oh, yeah.
Like what is it? Even Maurice Ravel putting a saxophone in the orchestra. Like that's like even today people are still like, oh, I don't know,
reluctant to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it didn't catch on essentially. Sorry, Ravel. As much as I love you. So even these ideas from the 20s, like 1920s or whatever, these ideas didn't permeate through to today to be like, oh, okay, this is normal now or whatever.
Yeah.
So things like an accordion in a rock band, but we all have examples for that now. The problem, but it's still seen as like, oh, but that doesn't belong.
Yeah, no,
That's
it's
not
still
in
seen
there.
as a reluctant sort of unique thing.
Yeah, it's like what is it? I saw this band in the UK when I was just looking up like weird instrumentation in rock bands, and it was like a rock band with a bassoon.
Huh.
As the like one of the musicians, and I was like, that's the coolest thing ever.
That's quite cool, yeah.
Like that's super cool. Like, of course they were prog rock. Of course they were prog rock.
Because they're doing something different. It's prog rock. Yeah, cool.
But it's I really firmly stand behind the fact though that if you just put something in and you don't put any thought into it and you don't try and say something interesting with it, people will see through it.
Yeah.
So don't think you
absolutely.
can just get away with the gimmick because it's a gimmick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. And I see a lot of examples of bands that use the gimmick as their whole thing because it is a gimmick. You know, like there's an Australian band, Sydney, it's called Galactic Empire. And they just recreate Star Wars music on metal instruments. And yes, it is fantastic. It's the best thing I've ever heard. But, I mean, it lacks depth in a way.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be a finality to that as well. Like, it's how far can you take it?
Yeah.
And I think some groups have really embraced that. Like Ailstorm is a great example of one that have embraced that, where one of their songs is about how all of their songs are about drinking rum, pillaging, villages, and crashing boats or whatever. Like, they have a song about that, and that's amazing. That's like very self-referential.
Yeah, and
but
meta.
But I think a great example of if people will see through it is even the greats. So George Gershwin, very famous composer, wrote a lot of jazz, wrote a lot of stuff that ended up being in musicals, also wrote a lot of stuff for orchestra. So he was one of those sort of what we might affectionately nowadays call a third string musician. Wrote this really famous piece called Rhapsody in Blue.
Right.
And 90% of people will have heard it, I guarantee. And I put that primarily down to Disney. But what most people don't know is that piece has a banjo written into it.
Right.
So there's a banjo part. And no orchestra actually goes out and finds a banjo player to do it. They just go, yeah, we don't need the banjo. Because you can't hear it.
Yeah.
Against the whole orchestra, you cannot hear the banjo.
No.
So no one actually does it. And so that, to me, is a perfect example of people will see through it if you're not using it in a way that is actually interesting or saying something with it. People will see through it.
Absolutely.
And we're talking about one of the greats here, like one of the absolute greats.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's coming up. It is on an hour now, and I think we have sidetracked a little bit, but I think we've actually come I think we've come to a quite nice place of what we can say for this here podcast and for this here week. So yeah, I would like to thank you very much for actually taking the time to talk to me, a relatively uninformed 19-year-old.
We all were at some point. So.
No. So thank you very much. It's been awesome talking to you, and
my pleasure.
Yeah. I'll talk to you again soon, maybe, or maybe not. Who knows? Who knows what will happen?
Right on.
All right. Thanks, man.
Awesome. No worries.
All right. Thanks, man. And see you guys later. Bye-bye.